week and sort of the final full week in August already, and a lot of schools getting ready to open up. Later on, after the 10 o'clock news, we'll have open phones for you this morning. At 11 o'clock, we'll learn about a Jeep Jam from folks at Silver Lining Boutique. But for this hour, we spend it with a state representative, and he is Matthew Beerline. Good morning.
Good morning, Art.
How you doing?
Not too bad. I've got three of those kids who are going back to school tomorrow, so we've got a lot going on at our house.
I can't believe it. I don't know if summer just flew by again. Yeah, well, as long as we're still here to enjoy it, that's the key.
We've had a couple nice days, but there hasn't been a whole lot of summer at the Beerline house this year.
No, I can't imagine why. But anyway, a couple of things I want to talk about separate from specific issues in Lansing these days, more on the political side. Michigan has become, I would say, a purple state.
Yes.
Could go either way. Does. But we're seeing a lot of noise right now, nationally and locally, from the Democrat Socialists. One of them is in Michigan, El Said,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of commercials, both pro and con, both sides. Where do you think all this is going to lead?
I think because of that, it's changed the shape of this year's election cycle. So, where typically this is a governor's campaign year, the governor candidates would be the top of the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's completely changed. That
I
Senate
agree.
race has become the top of the ticket. It has become
The bellwether.
it's the race has been shaped to, is it socialism or the traditional American system, the American dream way of life, that you can work hard and prosper through your labors, or does government fix everything?
Well, and I think it's also reduced something else. On the one side, socialist. On the other side, a typical American politician. When you
Yes.
think about it, because that's what you have. You have Mike Rogers on the one side, you have El Said on the other, and a stark contrast.
Absolutely. And I think the entire race is going to be shaped around those contrasts, and it will, every level of government, every position, certainly at a state level, all the House races, all of the Senate races, the governor's race, everyone will be tied to those things. Like you see the ads now, right now, President Trump is not popular amongst independents, and so every ad you see against Mike Rogers, they try to tie him to President Trump. You're going to see every race tied to El Said.
What's interesting, though, the candidates themselves have actually produced pretty good spots. El Said, I mean, his grandmother and grandfather spot is terrific.
That is a great ad. It is a great ad.
It is a
Absolutely.
great ad. Softens him up as a human. It's a great ad. Rogers is stuck to the issues, talks about what he'd do and so forth. That's fine. It's the PACs that caused the trouble.
Agreed. And you can't control those as a candidate.
You can't control them. You have no control of them. It's like us here at the radio station. If you as a politician present an ad that is out and out false, and you wouldn't do that. But if you did, with nothing we can do about it. If it's a political ad that you're on in a recognized capacity, we have to run it.
Right.
PACs, that's another story. But who are we to be the arbiter? That's the problem.
And once the PAC runs the ad, they actually there's a process to challenge it, to say it's not true, to be able to get things taken down. It's not easy.
No, by the time that's done, the election's over.
The election's over. The damage has been done.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
It's like a trial, and some attorney wants to get a point across that probably he shouldn't, but he goes ahead and makes it anyway, and the judge admonishes him and tells the jury, forget it. Sure.
Well, and that's, you say that, and that's kind of why I think we've talked about this a little bit before. The AI legislation that we passed a couple of years ago around election stuff, it's only state elections, but we recognized that to make it a simple violation of like campaign finance, it's $1,000 fine if you create a fake video of somebody doing something really
my
bad.
$1,000.
Here's my $1,000 if I'm running for governor.
Yeah.
So we attached criminal penalties to it. Like you could actually go to jail for making an AI video that is truly false, and you don't put the disclaimer that it's made and generated with AI, which we thought was really important to add that level of scrutiny, because financially, some PAC will pay the $1,000 for you to be able to make the claim.
They'll do their own thing and pay the $1,000.
Right.
Absolutely. But the reality, too, is there any court that's going to send anybody to jail for doing it? I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Has it been tested?
It hasn't. I believe there's some investigation happening around actually the primary race and the 35th on the Republican side. There were some fake AI videos made and a Facebook page made for that Senate race that I don't know if it's gone through the civil side, because there's kind of two paths it can take. But I know that it was talked about pretty early on, because there was some just false videos made and posted on Facebook.
Well, unfortunately, in this day and age, politics, as you well know, I mean, you're a player. It's not the same. Well, I say that it's not the same game it always was, but maybe that's not true. And I've said a long time ago, I said, if you think about the days of Jefferson and what's changed, well, if Tom Jefferson were running for something and you accused him of being an adulterer, whether he was or not the point, you'd make the comment by standing on some dusty street and yelling at the top of your lungs, and maybe there'll be a reporter there who writes it down, and then maybe it gets printed and put on a horse, sent off to your town and every other town. You'll read it one time, and that'll be the end of it. If he were alive today and you accused him of it, you'd hear it 100 times a day, every day, for 3 weeks, till you're so tired of it, you shake your head. And that's what's different today, is how we communicate.
Well, the methodology has changed for sure with social media, with the ability for people to reshare information. And I think that because of social media, the consequences have changed as well. There used to be maybe a little bit more integrity in what you would say, because people would hold you accountable for what you say.
Yeah, well, yes.
And that doesn't exist. People can say whatever they want. They can hide behind, a fake Facebook profile and say whatever they want, and there's no accountability for that.
None whatsoever. And the internet's anonymous, and social media is anonymous. Can be, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this, Matthew. Why are you still in the game?
I believe in service, but this is my home. It's been my family's home since as far back as I can see, the 1840s. I want to see it be successful. I always say I want my kids to stay here, but what I want my kids to have the ability to stay here. My oldest hates being cold. I'm sure that he's moving, right? But I want them to have the ability to stay here, so they need to have good schools.
The choice.
Yeah, good schools, safe communities,
and jobs.
And so I believe that every citizen has their, I think, duty to serve their community. Everybody has different ways of doing that, and this has been the way that I've been able to do it.
Yeah, you heard me say at the awards luncheon the other day that my father had told me, when you live someplace, don't just live there, be a part of it.
Yes.
And I've taken that to heart. I really have. And I think we all, if we all rowed the boat toward making it a better place, we'd be there, But what are you going to do? All right, Matthew Bierlein is with us, state representative. We'll chat about things going on in Lansing here. And if you have any questions, you can chat with Representative Bierlein at 989-752-6111. And we'll be back.
Beautiful new Florida.
We're back with you, and in studio with me, State Representative Matthew Bierlein. And if you have any questions for the representative, you can give us a call at 989-752-6111. So the budget gets passed. So that's the big nut out of the way. Will anything else get done for the remainder of the year since we're in a midterm session?
Hard to say. So we're going to be in session Tuesday, Wednesday this week. So tomorrow, the House is going to be back in session. There's some cleanup from the budget, some bills that occasionally, because there's so much happening so fast, there's a typo or something that gets fixed. It has to come back. It has to be
that's kind of universally approved, isn't it?
Yep, normal stuff. But that has to happen. So we're going back to do that. Not a lot of session days between now and November. And then after that, it's really hard to say.
Depending
it's going to depend. Yeah, it's going to depend. Who's going to be in control of the legislature? Who's going to have the governor's office? And that's really going to drive what happens. I mean, so hypothetically, Republicans take all three spots. They have the governor and both chambers. Are they going to work on a policy priority with the Democratic governor and Democratic Senate to get it done this year, or do they just wait till January?
Wow.
And vice versa. So unless things are still divided going into next term, I don't see a whole lot of activity.
So if there were activity, what would be your priority?
My priority? I've been working on a bill with Representative Frisbee, set of bills that has to do with sales taxes on building materials and an exemption if you have an active building permit to try and lower the cost of materials. I mean, it's what things can we do to lower cost? Throwing money, subsidizing the cost itself, giving state money doesn't actually lower the cost. It just changes who pays, and in a lot of cases, I think it raises the cost. So just if we can stop paying the sales tax on building materials, if you have an actual building permit to build a new home, then that's something we're working on. I've been working on some child safety stuff that we got out of the House that I'd really like to see get through the Senate. We've been working with state police to try and find the right language to make it enforceable, but it has to do with people who are on the sex offender registry not having jobs that work with kids. Most people think that's a common sense thing, but it's not the actual law.
In law. Really?
Only in schools. That's only in schools.
That's just schools, nothing else.
Right now, only in schools.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah, yep.
That's so the only thing the law addresses.
It's the only thing the law addresses. So there are communities, like if your community, if you're going to coach youth soccer, they run a background check and they say, oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to let you be a coach, and that's a good thing, but it's not the law. It's not required. And there are folks that, start businesses that work primarily with kids that they start the business, they have a karate school full of kids, and then somebody searches the list and finds out that the karate instructor and owner is on the list. So we're trying to work on that. I would say that's one of my top priorities. If I could get that done, it would
seem to
make me pretty happy.
Well, it would seem to me, what do I know, that is so common sense that you would have universal across the aisle support, and the governor too. You would think this would be something that could get done.
So we used to have stricter rules around this. Like if you remember, you couldn't, if you were on the registry, you couldn't live within so many feet of a school and things like that. Those were challenged in the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court ruled that our law around the registry and then the restrictions applied to it were not constitutional. So we had to rewrite all of that. I think it was in 19 and maybe 20 that they had to do that. Went through that process. I think it left some holes, and this is one of those holes. And it doesn't make sense to me that we recognize you can't work in the school,
But you could start a school.
but you could start a tutoring program.
Yeah.
An after-school tutoring program. Anything like that. That just doesn't make sense.
Well, a lot of what happened. Well, never mind. I won't be quiet.
I have found over my years in government that sense is actually not very common. So,
Well, when you look at where you are today, Matthew, not you specifically, but where politics is today, how did we get here?
The polarization, I think it's the push to go as far right and as far left. There was I can't remember the guy's name. There was a Republican strategist during the first Bush administration that said the farther I can push my party to the right makes my starting point that far. So then when I negotiate and I come down, and I think both sides do that. They push the starting point very far to the fringes so that when they negotiate, they get closer to where they want and they can claim a victory. But the problem is they've convinced everyone else that that's the right way.
And the other problem is we don't see them negotiating. Yeah, it may be going on behind closed doors, but we don't hear about it.
Yeah,
and nothing comes of it.
Well, I mean, we can talk about the budgets this way, right? Like one budget's $5 billion over what we have to spend, and one budget's $20 billion less than that, and then we negotiate something that's in the middle, and both sides claim a win because what we got was better than where we started. But that happens a lot with policy as well.
But we see it in budget because you have to, and it's such a forefront issue. It's out there, and we know that in the end there has to be compromises. We know that. But I just sometimes think that we've forgotten how to sit down, listen to both sides, come up with the best ideas from both, put it together, and move on. And I'm sure it happens. And particularly, there's a lot of things that happen in Lansing, for example, things that get passed we never hear about. They're not newsworthy.
Yeah. Governing is not always exciting.
They're not every day. They're the routine, everyday stuff that has to happen. But it's the big issues we hear about, and it's usually the far sides that make all the noise.
Well, the big issues are certainly harder to negotiate on, and I would say those are that's where you have your principles, right? Like it's very difficult for me. Like I'm not interested in negotiating on right to life issues.
Well, I was going to say that's a perfect example. There's a chasm, and we know what to expect.
Yes,
we know what to expect on those issues. But unfortunately, when those issues hit the news and they become forefront, they overshadow everything else.
They do, and they make it difficult. There are times that those disagreements between the two sides on core issues where your principles will not allow you to come together make it difficult to move forward and have conversations in other areas. And that certainly happens. I think that's probably the biggest struggle, but also one of the most important aspects of what makes a good legislator is being able to overcome those disagreements, put them aside, and work on the things that you can work on. Back to the AI stuff and the things that we've done there. I worked with a rep on the Democratic side we are very far apart, but it's something that we were both passionate about fixing. And so we were able to work together to get those things done.
Yeah, you found common ground. All right, we're going to take a break. We're talking to State Representative Matthew Bierlein, and we will be back with more. And you're welcome to give us a call at 989-752-6111. When your car gets dirty, what do? You take it to a car wash, right? You wash it. Of course you do. But what happens when your car's engine gets dirty, particularly internally? Injectors, pistons, valves, they build up with carbon and they oxidize over time. And what that does, it causes a reduction in performance and mileage. But no worries, because you can wash your engine internally with an engine performance treatment. It's 2 parts. 1 part goes in the tank, 1 part goes into the engine. And if you want to know what it does, I've asked John from Quick Lane Freeland to tell you about it.
Hi, Art. Our fuel treatment goes in the fuel tank and cleans everything gas touches, including carbon buildup on injectors. Our oil treatment cleans the gunk and grime inside the engine. After 15 minutes, we drain the oil and the sludge comes out with it. Works on both cars and trucks.
And the best thing about it is you will notice a difference right away. When you start your car, it'll run smoother, it'll run quieter. You'll see a slight increase in gas mileage, too, and that depends how, of course, you drive. But you'll get some giddy up and go with a clean engine at Quick Lane Freeland. And remember, when you do that, you're also extending the life of your engine and reducing major costs down the road. Also, at Quick Lane Freeland, part of the McDonald Ford complex, they still sell all their tires at just $5 over cost. Quick Lane Freeland.
Medicare scams.
Hi, we're back with you, and in studio with me, State Representative Matthew Bierlein. We had a caller who didn't want to hang on, apparently. Scott in Freeland asks, what about what he calls the $2 million slush fund for the Saginaw County Mosquito Control Building? That's not a state issue, is it?
It's not a state issue. I know a little bit about it. There's a county millage to fund mosquito abatement. Right. They requested a millage to build a new building. I think they were able to find and renovate an existing building that will save.
I think of Buena Vista, yeah.
Yeah, save about $2 million from what was originally thought they needed. Over the course of collection, the county will always have the ability to go back and reevaluate how much they need to collect. They can lower a millage. They can always lower. They can't increase, but they could lower the millage if they're collecting more than they need. It's not like the state doesn't have oversight of that, but that's where your county commissioners come in, and having a relationship with them and talking with them and
at the end of the
asking those
year,
questions.
if they don't need that $2 million, they could reduce.
They absolutely could
reduce the millage.
Yep, they could. But
it's a county issue.
It's a county issue, and as they go through and actually create and renovate the building, they may if you run into something, they might need the $2 million that they didn't think they needed. Building projects have a way of getting out of hand.
Day and age. Cost of building today is ridiculous, just unreal.
It is. It's last week. We were working on some habitat houses over by Covenant Hospital, and they're about 1,200 square feet. They're what we would all consider a pretty nice starter home. I asked what the market rate for one of those houses would be, and they said it was around $320,000.
Well, would they be brand new?
And yeah, they're brand new, and they're modular built.
Yeah,
they're modular built homes.
But here's the thing. I mean, that, let's say 1,200 square foot home.
Mm-hmm.
20, 30 years ago, you could have built that home for probably $50, $60 a square foot.
Yep.
Sold it for sometimes even under $100,000, but $100, $125, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And that was a starter home for the day. At $300 a square plus today, that home is $400,000, $450.
Yeah, it's
got to be.
It's wild.
It's not. Who can afford it?
I don't know. We talk about this a lot. It's hard to find builders who want to build houses that size, because people don't want a house that size, and
not for that price.
Not for that price. And there's a lot of cost that goes into the foundation, the roof, the property, the permitting. There's all of these things. The Home Builders Association puts the cost of regulation at around $120,000 per build. That could be things as much as like how far your setback, how long your driveway has to be, how much offset you have to have from the side. There's all kinds of regulations that they kind of put into that increase the cost. But if you have $120,000 of regulation,
so
if you build 1,000 square foot house or you build a 4,000 square foot house, that price doesn't move.
So the question is, how do we get government out of the way and still maintain reasonable standards? Because there needs to be standards.
Yes, safety standards. There's some aesthetic standards.
Right, exactly. But how do we get government out of the way?
I think it, for the most part, there are state proposals. I haven't been a big favor of some of those state proposals that change, that would take away the authority of locals to do that zoning. So I think a lot of it starts with local people, being involved with their local units of government. If you think it's appropriate to have a 50-foot setback from the road for your community, then fine. If you think 25 is enough, then go to your local unit of government and try to change that. If you think certain lot size requirements or certain square footage requirements are too large, like, you can work on those things with your locals. I don't think the state should come in and tell the city of Saginaw how to do that, or we shouldn't come in and tell the city of Vassar how to do that. That's why you have if you're going to do that, if you're going to take away all that authority at the local level, then why do we have those local units of government? And so that's why we have them. Local people should be in charge of their local communities, not Southeast Michigan telling Vassar what to do.
Yet, at the same time, when it came to wind and solar, the state literally superseded local authority to zone.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, in my 4 years, I've only stood up on the floor to speak against something once, and it was that. That was an easy no vote for me. But that the state looked at a program that, at the time, that was the Democratic trifecta. They said, we want to move forward with this policy, and we know that locals are going to get in the way of moving forward with this policy, so we're going to take away their ability.
Yeah. I will take a break and come back with one more segment with State Representative Matthew Bierlein.
Celebrating his 90th.
All right, we're back with you. We're talking to State Representative Matthew Bierlein. One of the things early on, you talked about your youngsters and you want them to be able to grow up and stay in Michigan, and one of the things they need to have is jobs. So what should the state do to attract business when you're up against subsidy states in the South that are giving it away, and these companies are all locating there? How far does Michigan go to attract business?
So there's kind of two trains of thought. We call kind of the gardening method and the hunting method. The gardening method is you have the systems in place that are business friendly. So you have sites available, you have reliable and affordable power, you have a tax structure that makes sense, a regulatory structure that makes sense, and a workforce. The hunting method is maybe you have some of those pieces, maybe you don't, but you throw a lot of money at a business to get them to come here and figure it out once they're here. We've done a little bit of both. In the past, we've had some programs like SOAR that was, sometimes it was paying for infrastructure up front to bring businesses here. Sometimes it was tax incentives and tax abatements. And then sometimes it was truly like, we're going to subsidize part of your construction costs or part of this business to get businesses to come here. Ohio and Indiana, who are kind of our biggest competitors in all of this, even Tennessee to an extent, they're really good at this gardening method, site development, having pieces of every town had a small industrial park. Mm-hmm. That's the same kind of thought process. We've created this space for you to come and build your next widget maker factory. And here it is. And we have power available. There's water available. You have land. And we're going to give you a property tax abatement for the first 7 years, or a Renaissance zone that your taxes won't go up for a certain number of years after you build. And in turn, you're going to create, jobs.
Yeah.
It's not even tied to, a certain number of jobs, but you're going to create jobs, and that's going to bolster the community because you're going to buy services, your kids are going to go to school, you're going to buy a house. The places that are eating our lunch right now are doing really good at that. They have a better tax structure, they have a better regulatory structure, and they have that better energy cost.
So the question I have is, if we want to compete, why aren't we stealing their ideas? We know what to do.
I think we're trying. I think we are. We're trying to steal some of their ideas. So we look at some of these states, and every year they are working at reducing their personal income tax by, even if it's a half a percentage or a quarter of a percent. They have a plan to reduce their personal income tax rate. That attracts employees, and if you have employees, well, job creators are going to go where they can find employees. So that's a piece of it. That energy piece, having reliable and affordable energy, is huge for an industrial base. That is probably where I think we lag behind the most. And we went, talking about those policies that we were just talking about.
And the part
that doesn't help.
The part that I think would be least controversial is infrastructure, because I think that's the responsibility of government, to provide infrastructure.
Yeah, we put in the water and sewer lines. We build the roads, that transportation piece of it. So developing that infrastructure, having it available, and then the rest of it comes down to the regulatory structure. And this is where that energy piece and that regulatory structure is where we have the biggest kind of fights in government between what is the appropriate level of regulation, and then some of us who think we don't like regulation at all, and trying to find that balance that is both business friendly, environmentally friendly, friendly to the community that a business is going to go into, and that's the biggest kind of, I think, where all the disagreements happen. How much red tape can we get rid of and still have a safe community or a safe environment?
Do we sit down with business and say, what will it take to get you here instead of there?
I think those conversations happen. I think they're not happening with like a me, right? They're not happening with your local state legislator. They're happening with the governor's administration. They're happening with the MEDC, business leaders of Michigan who spoke at the
he was very good.
Lunch we were at the other day.
Donafor?
Yeah. Yep. He did a great job outlining some of those things. He talked about regulation, for instance. Well, Rep. Schuette up in Midland is chair of the Rules Committee and has taken on, there were 50 pieces of legislation that we introduced in the House. I think about half of them have made it out of the House, we call it the red tape reduction package. And it was tons of bills that are all things that like Michigan makes businesses do that nobody else does, that when you look at them, they don't actually have any like, there's no environmental impact. We're not protecting the Great Lakes by making you do this. We're just making you do this extra thing. And other states aren't doing that. So why would you want to come here when you could go there and not have to do that?
If you have this passel of bills, how many make it out of the Senate?
That is a great question. And that's the struggle. And those are things like, why can't we work through that in lame duck, right? Like if we're not going to work on these big, huge issues because we're waiting to see who wins, why can't we work on these things that we universally recognize need to be fixed if we want to be competitive?
Yeah. Well, Matthew, as always, thanks for being with us. Just to mention, he's also a candidate for the state Senate, and we'll have more with him in the future. And all of that, thanks for being here.
Oh, I always appreciate it. Thank you.
State Representative Matthew Bierlein, we thank him for joining us on this Monday of the last full week of the month of August. News coming up, and then we'll have open phones next hour for whatever you want to talk about.
Attention, commercial landscapers and